Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a lightning fast pocket knife review to share with you guys. This is the Miguron Galaty. I'm actually not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but it is a great product from Miguron. It's got great materials. The price is fantastic. The quality is fantastic. It's just a good knife. Generally speaking, I'm going to recommend this, but I will go over it. We'll go over the details as to why. But I am going to go ahead and link it down in the description so you guys can check it out if you want to. It comes in a couple of different colors, black and green, at least, perhaps one more. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to Miguron for sending it in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. Let's get some quick specs. Not a huge knife, but not a tiny knife, coming in at about 7.5 inches. Blade length is about a little over 3 and it's right at 3 1/4. Cutting edge is about 2.75 thanks to a large forward choil there. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under original goat and others. So up against the AD10, the AD20.5, definitely much more comparable to the AD20.5. How about up against the, Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Once again, much closer to the smaller one here, the Spyderco Para 3, and actually pretty similar ergonomic lines. Finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca, if I can find it. All right, how's the action on this guy? It's very good. It's exactly what you'd expect. You move the liner over, flipper comes down to your thumb, no double clutch. A little bit of encouragement will get it closed. The flipper tab is great. The detent's great. The opening hole is great. What does this remind you of? It reminds you of the Honey Badger. It's very similar to the Honey Badger. Not a line-for-line copy, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was their motivation here, and that's fine, right? As long as they're not doing a duplication of the Honey Badger, that's perfectly fine. If we're going to call this a copy, I've got about 1,000 other knives that existed before and after the Honey Badger that we need to discuss first. So I would say don't waste your breath. It's not worth it. But it does work, right? Generic profile, generic blade profile, generic, manipulation element, the hole here, right? It all works. It's exactly what you would expect. I will say, had they scalloped this, it would have made this a little bit more accessible, but it's not bad. It's still fully accessible. Reverse flick is fine, right? You're good to go. However you like to manipulate this, you're going to be good to go. Carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, it's about the same. This is contoured, so it does feel a little bit better. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. I carried this knife for about a day. It's very comfortable. It's very similar to a lot of other pocket knives out there. It's just a good size. It's not overly thick. It's not heavy. It's not big or anything. It's a nice compact knife, so it's going to carry really well. Materials, we are looking at micarta, contoured micarta, steel liners, a titanium pocket clip, which is nice, and a 14C28N blade, which is fantastic. Arguably the very best steel that you can get under $75 on a knife. It's a little bit subjective, but yeah. Weight is 3.32 ounces, considering it's got 3 1/4 inches of blade. Not bad at all, and your balance is right about where you're going to have your index finger anyway, so it's pretty darn good. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel. Sorry about that. Got out my tape measure. Didn't need that. Most likely, the pivot will be a T8. That's what these usually are. And then your body screws will also be T8. And your pocket clip screws, oh, those are T8 as well. The whole thing is T8. Fantastic. Miguron, please start milling out holes so that people can take these symmetrical pocket clips and flip them over for left-handed carry if they happen to be left-handed. If you're right-handed, you're good to go. Either way, it's very easy to take apart, put back together. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness here real quick. Blade stock thickness of the Galaty. And there's no way that's what it's, how you say it. 116 thousandths, not bad at all. Okay, meat and potatoes time. When I say that this is a simple knife, it's simple, it doesn't require a complex review. But it's terrible, I'm sorry. But it is, it's a straightforward pocket knife, right? If you're new to the knife world, there are definitely great knives that you can spend $50 on, and then there's a bunch of trash. And anybody who's been a part of this knife world for a long time knows that. Getting online and shopping for pocket knives, like if you're on TikTok or you're on short form content, social media, have you ever seen those guys that open up those big crates and it's like a whole colored theme of weapons? There's like a scythe in there, and there's like a little dagger, and there's a little karambit, and there's a freaking chainsaw, and they're all purple or rainbow color. That's a great example of hot garbage. Please don't ever buy anything like that. It's just a trap for views. That stuff is trash. Absolute trash. There are definitely companies out there that are making products with very tight tolerances, properly tuned detents, blade steel compositions that are worth your money. No, not all steel is the same. There are thousands of compositions. Believe me when I say that's literally true. There are thousands of compositions out there. There are things that are definitely worth your money, and definitely things that are not worth your money. And the stuff that is worth your money is going to last longer. I'm not saying that this knife is indestructible, but if you use this knife as a knife should be used, and I can't believe that there are still people out there who need their hand held through this, but for cutting tasks, not prying, not hammering, right, but cutting, this knife will definitely last longer than a lot of the trash out there. And this is mainly directed at newer people, because this is the type of knife that maybe somebody who's either specifically collects budget knives, which is great. I think that's really cool. Or if you're new to knives in general, this is the type of knife that I recommend, right? Good ergonomics, open, functional profile, a nice forward choil. The jimping is functional and complements the index finger position. The blade guide isn't razor thin, but it is very thin. So your cutting tasks, like your slicing tasks, this is going to go through materials like paper, styrofoam, rubber, cardboard, stuff that you would normally cut, right? The final cutting bevel is very even. The finish on the blade is really good. 14T28N is tough. It's stainless. That doesn't mean impenetrable to corrosion. It just means it will resist corrosion generally very well. I think the line is 14% chromium or something like that. It'll slice, it'll cut. It's easy to touch back up. 14T28N does not have infinite edge retention, but it's a very, very well-balanced steel at this price point. The hole there, which is what you would use to manipulate the blade, whether you just want to pinch open it and open it like a normal person, you want to reverse flick it, right? You want to be super fancy about it. You want to do the super special Spidey drop for Larry in the parts department, right? Who's impressed by anything. Well, then there you go, right? The flipper tab also works really well. It's just very easy to manipulate. It doesn't require a torsion bar, spring, or anything like that. It just functions, right? Few parts, the fewer the parts, the better, right? If you're new and maybe you're used to assisted knives, things like that, nowadays a properly tuned detent will function exactly the same without you having to worry about the torsion bar or the coil spring wearing out. So nice drop point blade profile, nice tip, right? Like I said, even cutting bevel on both sides. It's just exactly what you'd want. The contouring of the micarta is fantastic. Seating of the hardware is very good. Fit and finish all the way around. Nothing's going to be sticking out or, just inappropriately ugly, goofy, like they didn't care. Miguron is a quality manufacturer, and they make some of the nicest budget knives on earth. When I say budget knives, I mean knives that cost less than $75. There is a lanyard hole right here. If you like lanyards, great. Comes with a titanium pocket clip, which at this price point is pretty rare. What's the benefit to a titanium pocket clip? Titanium is much more forgiving than steel. There's also a milled clip. It's very strong. If you do catch it on something, which is not likely, given that the bill is pretty shallow, it will, for the most part, kind of spring back into its standard position, right? It's also incredibly corrosion resistant, and it's, generally speaking, is considered a much higher quality material when used for certain parts on a knife than steel. It's also a little bit more expensive to work with and mill out versus something like just like a basic stamped pocket clip made out of steel. So it's good. I think the pocket clip's a little long on this guy. I think I would have cut it back by about 30%, but it's fine. In and out of the pocket is fine. It's nice, smooth surface to ride on, right? Not really anything else to talk about here. The carry depth, that's all that's going to stick out of your pocket. You have a stop pin right here with a little bit of shouldering. The knife does run on bearings, but I feel like that was obvious with the action. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. No pivot lash, right? Pivot lash should be like moving up and down right here. The tolerances are really good with the pivot barrel, so it's nice and tight without, basically the hole that's cut in the blade is the exact size of the pivot barrel without there being any give or any play in any direction. You only want this to be smooth, which it definitely is, and the detent is just about perfect considering what you're going to use to open and close it. The centering is also perfect, and there's no detent lash, which would mean the detent ball being not the right size for the detent hole, so it kind of wiggles around in the closed position. None of that. Right? These are all things that we've checked for to kind of determine, how tight the tolerances are on knives like this. And just like every other Miguron knife I've ever handled, it checks out. This is about as straightforward as it gets. This is an extremely recommendable knife to newer people. I think that seasoned knife enthusiasts and collectors will have zero interest in this, but it's very easy to recognize this as a good basic cutting tool. So if you're new, or if you're not new and you're looking for a gift for somebody, or if you're just looking for your next budget knife and this is interesting, yeah, it's good to go, right? I mean, there's a million knives out there that are like this, but if this one in particular interests you, it's great. $52 is a fantastic price for this, especially considering they put a titanium pocket clip on it. Nice touch. The one thing that Miguron for some reason will not do is mill out an additional hole for left-handed people. Come on, Miguron, get that done. Other than that, it's fine. That's pretty much it. There's really nothing else that needs to be talked about here. Links for this guy down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.